And we are back after a short break. One thing I love about this show is I can help people out. Man, sometimes you can, you feel like God's working through you when you can hook people up who can help each other. All right, folks, we are back here on My Country with Scott Cannon, Issues and Answers Friday. The number again is 219-885-1371. That number again, 219-885-1371. Now, I definitely wanted to take care of this issue, or should I say, address this issue before I get on out of here, because I actually wanted to do it last week, but a lot of news came up with Trump and all those other people. Obesity. Yes, obesity. The plague, something that has plagued our community. In 2 generations, obesity has become an epidemic across the developed world, worldwide, nearly tripling between 1975 and 2016. By 2016, more than 650 million adults, or 13% of the world's adult population, was obese. Among children and adolescents ages 5 through 19, the global obesity rate rose from 1% in 1975 to 6% of girls and 8% of boys by 2016. Now, the rise in U.S. obesity rates dates to the mid-20th century. The most substantial and rapid increase in adult obesity has occurred within the past 30 years. From 1990 to 2016, the national adult obesity rate nearly doubled between 1990 and 2016. In certain U.S. states like West Virginia, Mississippi again, Alaska, Louisiana, Alabama, Kentucky, and South Carolina, it nearly tripled from about 1/8 of the population to more than 1/3. In this country, the U.S. obesity prevalence was 41.9%. 41.9% obesity in the United States. Okay? Obesity-related conditions include heart disease, strokes, type 2 diabetes, certain types of cancers. These are among the leading causes of preventable and premature deaths. The estimated annual medical cost of obesity in the United States is $173 billion. That's billion with a B. Medical costs for adults who had obesity were almost $2,000 higher than medical costs for people with a normal weight. Now, as black people, the majority of us are black people and Hispanics in this region of the country, in Lake County, Indiana, and the south side of Chicago, where I know some of y'all are listening. Non-Hispanic black adults had the highest age-adjusted prevalence of obesity. 50% of non-Hispanic black adults are obese. 50% of the black community in this country is obese. 50% of the black community in America is obese. That is followed by 45% of Hispanic adults. So y'all ain't doing no better. Okay, I should have said something to Juan and Eve before they got out of here and said, look, our communities, we got to do something about this obesity, because like blacks and Latinos are not doing good with the obesity. 45% of Hispanic adults are obese. 50% of black adults are obese. And if white people think they're going to be spared in this, oh no. 41% of white folks are obese. 41% of white folks are obese. The only group of people that isn't majority obese of all the major ethnic groups are non-Hispanic Asians, who are only obese 16% of the time. 16% of the time, 16% of Asians, are obese. 40% of adults between the ages of 20 and 40 are obese. 44% of adults between the ages of 40 and 59 years, and 41% of adults age 60 and older. Wow. Now, how does this happen? How does this happen? Well, according to a study called Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, the association between obesity and income or educational level is complex and differs by sex and race/identity. Overall, men and women with college degrees have lower obesity prevalence compared with those with less education. The same obesity and education pattern occurred among non-Hispanic whites, non-Hispanic blacks, and Hispanic women, and non-Hispanic white men. However, the differences were not all substantially different. Although the difference was not statistically significant among non-Hispanic black men, obesity prevalence increased with educational attainment. No differences in obesity prevalence by educational level was noted among non-Hispanic Asian women and men and Hispanic men. Among men, obesity prevalence was lowest in the highest income groups compared with the middle income group. Researchers observed this pattern among non-Hispanic white and Hispanic men. Obesity prevalence was higher in the highest income group than in the lowest income group with non-Hispanic black men. So this is an issue. This is an issue that is raging out of control all over our communities. Specifically, the pandemic has accelerated this. A new study has tied the COVID-19 pandemic to an alarming increase in obesity in American children. Childhood obesity has been increasing for decades, but a new study suggests that the acceleration during the pandemic has profoundly increased in weight gain for children. These developments are substantial and alarming, said one of the study's authors. It's also a sign of a vicious cycle. The pandemic seemed to be worsening the nation's long-standing obesity epidemic, and obesity can put people at risk for more severe illness after having coronavirus infections. Wow, this is something. Now, it's important to go back to maybe the main factor that caused this in the West. One of the biggest changes in our modern diet comes back to the 1970s. The 1970s, when U.S. agriculture embarked on the mass production of corn and high fructose corn syrup. Put a pin in that, folks. High fructose corn syrup, which is commonly used as a sweetener in processed foods. This led to a massive surge in quantities of cheaper food being supplied to American supermarkets, everything from cheap cereal to cheap biscuits. As a result, burgers got bigger and fries in corn oil got fatter. The number of calories produced in America and available to consumers went from 3,200 in the early 70s and early 80s to 3,900 per person, almost twice as anybody needs. High fructose corn syrup is a highly sweet byproduct of waste corn and is also incredibly cheap. And our government actually subsidizes this. Our government pays these farmers to overproduce corn. They also try to do that to use the overproduced corn to make ethanol, gasoline as well, but that didn't work out so well. Also, glyphosate. All these crops are being treated with glyphosate. We talked about glyphosate on this show fairly recently, and it's been linked in certain studies to autism. So glyphosate is in the toxic weed killer. It's Roundup. And it's a very effective metal chelator. This in turn disrupts your gut microbiomes because it makes minerals unavailable to the microbiomes. Your gut microbiomes needs those minerals as those enzymes depend on them and proper functioning. Also, genetically modified foods. Several studies in Europe have shown the effect of GMO, genetically modified foods, on rats, mice, pigs, and salmon. Researchers from Hungary, Austria, Ireland, Turkey, Australia, and Norway all participated in this study. And they found that the animals that were fed genetically modified foods over 90 days grew slightly faster and fatter than the control group that was fed non-GMOs. Fish-fed GMO food experienced the same effect. Now, it's important to understand why this is important. Who benefits? Who benefits from this? Big Pharma makes the drugs that treat obesity. And so they tell you, oh, it's all genetic. Hey, there's nothing you can do about it. Keep drinking what you're drinking. Keep eating what you're eating. I actually want to play this for you guys because who else benefits from it? Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all these other people who are producing these foods, these major companies. This is a man named Callie Means who worked for Coca-Cola, describing basically how when he worked for Coca-Cola, they used to buy off Black and Hispanic organizations to basically shield themselves from any type of criticism. This is pretty incredible. You need to hear this.
I've become convinced now, and I'm working to change this, the biggest issue we face as Americans is we're getting sicker, fatter, more depressed, more infertile. And when you tie those issues and really unpack it, it's because of food. So I sat across from Coke about 10 years ago when they were trying to keep Coke spending on food stamps, as we talked about. And the playbook was very simple, and it's not complicated. It's how do we rig institutions of trust? Who do people trust, and how can we pay them and get in front of them? So we talked about the NAACP. It was a transactional meeting. It's like, here's some money. You can call our opponents racist. People trust the NAACP.
Oh my gosh.
When they call someone racist, shut down debate. And there was contemporary reporting in the New York Times how the NAACP and the Hispanic Federation, they were out in force. And that was from white men sitting across the table from them, paying them money, and giving them talking points. It was very unsettling. It was very unsettling.
So you were a witness to this.
I put a list, as a junior person, put a list together, Hispanic Federation, NAACP, African-American pastors. We would call them, they're pay to play, and this is a playbook. This is like ordering a Big Mac. This is very transactional.
In this specific case that you saw, just to be completely clear to the audience watching, the issue at the core of it had nothing to do with civil rights or race or anything related, correct?
No, in fact, lower income Americans are getting decimated. There's skyrocketing diabetes rates among lower income children. A man in the lowest income bracket in the United States dies 15 years younger than an American at the richest income bracket. And that is almost entirely because of nutrition. It's because of metabolic dysfunction. It's because of what these folks are eating. And that's highly subsidized by a very corrupt system. So in fact, no, their communities are being decimated. But the way this works, and you kind of ask, you didn't see it, these are good people in their heads. It's not like an evil, like talking like they're evil. It's like, well, these folks need choice, you know? These folks need choice. We need to call these parents out who are concerned about sugar. We need to call them racist because, you know, we're trying to take the Coke away. And it was very patronizing. It's like, that's one of the few joys they have. We need to keep the Cokes in their hands. Not mentioning, of course, that we're subsidizing that diabetes water, you know, tens of billions of dollars. Food stamps, as we talked about in the segment, it's the #1 item on the preeminent government nutrition program in the United States. 10% of food stamps funding directly goes to sugar water, goes to diabetes water. It's absolutely insane. It's a material part of these.
Soda is 10% of food stamp
all
spending?
Food stamp spending is sugary beverages, which are absolute nuclear weapons for diabetes.
Wow. So it basically draws everything together that we've talked about on this show tonight. Wow. Black and Hispanic and civil rights organizations are captured. We as black people, we are a captured people politically. Our organizations do not represent us. We've had callers call up in here and detail in depth the type of corruption that happens in our communities and our political organizations. Our politicians are captured by these people. Our civil rights organizations are captured by these big corporations. They don't work for us. They sell us products that are killing us. They sell us other products to heal us or to help us keep us alive from the products that they're selling us that killing us. And because we are overwhelmingly poor, we have hundreds of years of wealth missing from our communities thanks to slavery, thanks to Jim Crow, thanks to having millions of acres of land stolen from us. We don't have the facilities to fight back. We don't have our own independent, economically independent organizations to fight for us and to keep us informed. So folks, we are, as the caller said, you got to do some of this stuff yourself. When it comes to what we eat, how we live, you cannot trust these organizations. You cannot trust these entities. You can't trust the food you're eating. You got to do the research. Make sure the food that you're eating isn't genetically modified. Make sure that you stay away from the high fructose corn syrup. I recently had a situation with my stomach. I can't eat much high fructose corn syrup. Best thing ever happened to me, apparently. Probably the best thing that ever happened to me at this point. Yeah, especially what you feed your children. Be careful what you feed your children. As this man said, they are subsidizing feeding you sugar water. Diabetes water is what he called it, because that's what it is. And so we are in a state of emergency because of that. Whew.